Africa. Calmer summer seas have prompted a recent upsurge in boats trying to reach Italy, where migration centers are overloaded. The Interior Minister, Angelino Alfano, said this month the military bases might be temporarily used to house new arrivals. Almost 100,000 boat people have made the dangerous journey across the Mediterranean to Europe this year, a roughly 60% increase on the whole of last year, and about 800 have died in the attempt. The exodus has surged this year as far more migrants put their lives in the hands of smugglers or unseaworthy vessels in a desperate attempt to reach Europe.
Many of the migrants, they were stabbed, they were kicked. Some of them were thrown at sea during these kind of battles of survivals. Other migrants died because they were asphyxiated. And when the rescuers arrived, some other migrants fell at sea during the rescue operations. So on this boat, there were initially 750 people. But when they arrived in Italy, there were just 569.
Italy is struggling to keep up with the number of migrant boats this year, which mostly depart from the coast of increasingly unstable Libya, and is seeking more help from the European Union in both the rescue mission and in hosting new arrivals.
I met some migrants who were looking for their brothers, and they were sure that they were in some hospitals or they were rescued by another boat. So we had to tell the migrants that those who were not with them were probably missing at death. So they were really traumatized. They were really sent like lambs to the slaughter.
And I was wondering, what will the coroner do? Will it mainly...
These are really painful stories because these are really young people that actually didn't expect themselves to find themselves in this terrible situation. One guy was crying and he told me that it was like being in a movie. He couldn't imagine see himself in such a terrible situation with all this pain, all this blood and these deaths.
More than 75,000 made the cross-continent trip in the first 6 months of 2014, landing up in Italy, Greece, Spain and Malta. The United Nations Refugee Agency said their number included 10,500 children, and that's 2/3 of them accompanied or separated from their families. The number of the whole of 2013 was around 60,000. More than 260 people have died or gone missing in the past 15 days, bringing to 800 the total number of deaths so far in 2014, compared with 600 in the whole of 2013 and 500 in 2012.
Well, that was indeed a very sad case, but stay with us here on Network Africa, as when we return, we'll give you tips on how to protect yourself from contracting the deadly Ebola virus.
It opens with a gate of arts, moves into windows of creativity.
She finds the only English word she knows from somewhere hidden in the belly of a 4-foot 9-inch body, and instead of "I won't get," she greets us with "bye-bye."
Branches into rooms of color, and ends with a roof of imagination. Walk into Art House. The pieces all come together at 9:30 p.m. every Saturday. Art House, life is art.
Welcome back. Now, just before we call it a day, here are tips to avoid getting infected by the Ebola virus. Avoid direct contact with someone suffering from Ebola. The disease is not airborne, however, it is highly contagious through bodily fluids. Those suffering from Ebola will bleed severely from their skin, and it could rupture with touch. Avoid eating deadly animals, especially monkeys, apes and monkeys, as they're known as carriers of the Ebola virus, and it could be caused by eating infected animals. Then, wash your hands with soap after shaking someone's hand. Avoid sharing clothes, mainly with strangers or someone suffering from Ebola, and cover your hands with gloves and make sure that your nose and mouth are properly protected before you touch someone suffering from Ebola. In the later stages of the disease, Ebola will cause a host to convulse in an effort to spread blood to other hosts. Ebola patients should be reported quickly and given treatment as soon as possible. And someone killed by Ebola should also be buried quickly. And that's the program this week. Thanks for watching. I am Amarachi Ubani.
A time comes in the life of every race when people are driven by echoes of the past to chart a course for an exalted future. Africa is a blessed threshold. As major actors in the Africa arena plots a renaissance towards common destiny, let's pedal across the streams of yesterday, from the backstreets of Africa to the defining roles of policymakers, the political realities of the African nation, balance of power,